Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is the basics of starting to take green screen video and put it on a background video. So we're going to composite two pieces of video with Adobe After Effects. So the first thing that I always do, of course, is I gather my clips and put them all in one folder where I'm going to have my project. So I have a project here, and you can see I've actually already got a couple done that I was playing with before. And I've got my clips in a folder. So how I start this is basically I'm going to launch Adobe After Effects, and when it pops up, it's going to ask if you want to create a new project or not. And I actually never do that. And one of the reasons why I never do that, well, I shouldn't say I never do that, but here it's going to ask you if you want to make a new composition. I will usually close it like this, and first I will import my video clips into the project here. And the reason why I do that is because a lot of times when you do go to create a new composition, it will ask you. So if I almost probably, yeah, if I create a new composition here, it's going to ask you a lot of things like resolution, codecs, frame rate, all that sort of stuff. And if you're not the most technical person in the world and you already have your footage, saved or captured or whatever, then a lot of times one of the easiest things to do is to actually not create a comp, but just take your background video and just drag it right down into the timeline. And what it's going to do then is it's going to create a composition for you, and you can see it here in the project panel. It's going to create a composition for you that's actually going to have all of the settings. Now, I downloaded this video from YouTube that I'm going to use for my background plate. And it's actually the assignment that I have my students do is actually find a fun YouTube video, and then they actually will download it, and then they place a video of themselves or a friend in the YouTube video to kind of enhance the story, change the story, make it funny, whatever. And you can see that it's just in the composition settings, it's already set it. And it's interesting that the frame rate's so low and everything like that, but that's okay. I chose it because it's a fun video. I will also have a link to the YouTube video in my in the description below, so you can go see it. It's kind of a cool video. So anyway, this guy's up in Alaska, I guess, and this grizzly bear decides to go visit him. And while I was watching this video, I kind of noticed, hey, there's a chair. There's an empty chair in front. So, the easiest way that I could do a demo like this is to just put myself in the chair. So the first thing that I noticed when I analyzed the video is we do have some camera motion, so we're going to have to do some motion tracking, and it gets really bad right here at the end. The bear kind of stands up, kind of starts to walk towards the guy, and the guy kind of like gets up, and the camera's a little shaky here. So the camera motion there is going to be really tough to analyze, and I realized that. The other thing that I noticed about this video is that when the bear kind of sits down, if I'm having a person sitting here in the chair, then that person's going to be blocking the action. So I decided that when I was filming this, I would have the person, who was myself, stand up and step up out of the frame. This actually served two purposes. The first purpose it served is that you can see the bear with the video, and that actually worked out really well. The second purpose that it served is when the camera moves really jerky and fast here, chances are I'm going to lose the motion tracking. And the reason why that happens when we do motion tracking is because motion tracking will look for these sharp edges, and then when the camera moves really fast, the edges get really blurry. And they also move really large distances in a short period of time, and the tracker can kind of lose them. So anyway, let's get started with this. So the first thing that I need to do is I'm going to take this video here that I shot against the green screen. We're going to drop that right in the middle here. And the first thing we're going to do is get rid of the green screen. So we're going to start with our effects, which are over here on the right. If they're not showing up, or any of these palettes or panels are not showing up, you can always turn them on underneath the window menu. And I'm going to go to my keying menu, and there's the key light. And I'm going to drag that. I can drag that right onto the clip. I can drag it onto the timeline here, or I can drag it directly onto the layer there. Doesn't really matter. And then over here in my effects controls, I have the ability to control the color of what my key light filter is trying to remove. Now my green screen is not the best. As you can see, it's very uneven lighting. So when I do this green screen, I'm going to do a very basic level green screen work. I'm going to do a separate demo on how to fine-tune the green screen and make it a lot better. And as you'll see, this is not going to be the greatest green screen ever. But I'm going to go over here, click on the tester under screen color. I'm going to go over here and I'm just going to click right in kind of a medium green, and you see immediately it creates a matte and it deletes the green. Now you can also see it's not the best. I've got a pretty good outline around me. I can adjust the screen gain, and there's other things that I can do, but see, if I adjust the screen gain too much, you'll see that all of a sudden I start to go see-through. You know, there's parts here where you can see the bear and through the face, and also down here you can see, you know, legs are completely see-through. So you generally want to keep the gain as close to 100 as possible. Just because, and so we'll just leave it at that, and I'll refine the green screen in a different demo. For the purposes today, this is just about getting started and doing the motion tracking. So now the next thing that I'm going to do, first things first, is I'm going to actually, you know, time this. So I step up out of the frame. I want to do that right after the bear sits down. So now I'm just going to grab this track, and what's cool is I can kind of slide it left or right, and I'm just going to slide it there. So now the bear sits down, and then I move. So this looks pretty good. However, you can see that, of course, the reference video here, the green screen video, is just staying directly in the center. It's not moving at all, and so as a result, I'm just kind of floating in the middle of the frame, and I don't look in any way, shape, or form like I belong, because I'm not being conformed to the camera motion that was originally used. So let's turn this off right now for a second, and let's select our bear video, and we're going to add a motion tracker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the tracker here. If that's not open, you can click that. If it's not there, again, go to the window menu and find your tracker. And then what you're going to do is you have to choose the tracker type. In this case, we want to track the motion. Sometimes you want to stabilize motion. Sometimes you want to track the camera for 3D stuff or whatever. But we're going to track the motion. So I'm going to hit that. And then the camera does rotate later on in the video. So it's kind of important to kind of keep that in mind. So you can see here how the horizon's a little crooked. He kind of rotates the video a little bit there. I think he had other things on his mind than whether the camera was straight or not. So we also are going to check not only position but also rotation. That's going to give us 2 of these trackers. Now, when we're choosing trackers, it's really important to choose the appropriate locations to track. Things that we're looking for: sharp edges, high contrast, bright colors, you know, and objects that are close in position and distance to what the green screen video is going to be filling in. What I mean by that is I shouldn't put a tracker back here on the mountains, most likely, because they're far away, and angular velocity or angular distance is going to change the rate at which this moves. So what I mean by that is if he rotates the camera and the chair moves from one side of the screen to the other, the mountain's going to actually move a smaller distance across the frame because it's further away. So I have to kind of be mindful of that. I also don't want to choose a tracker here in the middle. And the reason for that, the reason why I don't want to choose a tracker down here in the middle, is because the bear is going to walk through that, and anything it's going to be tracking is going to be blocked by the body of the bear. And what will happen then is the tracker will either pick up the bear and move with the bear, which is not good, or will just freak out and go off on its own. I also can't choose the grass here in the front because as we go further on in the frame, you see that that's not there. I can't choose this grass that's over here because it's not in the frame to begin with. Now you can do multiple trackers and you can kind of put the data together if you want to, but it's much easier if you just choose a good thing, good object to do your tracker on that's always going to be in the video. And to that effect, we have the chair. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this first tracker, I'm going to go bring it down here right onto the corner of the chair, and you can adjust the size of the tracker sensor square, I guess, if you want to call it, the tracker point. You can make it too big, so that's really important. Like if the bear walks past and it's a really big tracker, sometimes it can pick up pieces of the background or whatever. Down here is a really good area of high contrast, but it's actually not the best. I'm choosing it on purpose. We're going to make a little bit of a mistake on purpose here, and you'll hopefully see what it's going to do. So once I choose my two trackers, and tracker point 2 is going to be awful, then I can go down here and I'm going to analyze. So you can analyze backwards, forwards by either single frame, little by little, or you can just hit the play button and let it do the entire video. So that's actually what I'm going to do for right now, is I'm just going to hit that and let it do the entire video, and we'll just see what happens. But you can pretty much guarantee that this tracker is going to go a little nuts. I've tried this before and I've watched it, and of course it's going to make a liar out of me and stay perfectly still. It's sliding up and down a little bit. What it did for me the first time is it kind of went down the pole, and then it slid along the armrest here. It didn't do that, of course, for my demo, because of course my demos, they don't ever cooperate. But you want to be careful about stuff like that. So what I actually thought was a better tracker here is going up to the corner. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to edit undo. I don't know why. Sometimes you can move a tracker before you analyze. But anyway, I could also hit reset, but occasionally After Effects has a tendency to crash. So another good and important thing to do at this point in time is actually save my project, especially before you do the tracker analysis or the motion analysis, because that's a pretty big process for After Effects to go through, and it is probably a potential place where it might crash. So bear of a problem number 4, okay, because I've been doing this, experimenting with this so I could get ready for this demo. And honestly, I've had to do this demo multiple times because things keep going wrong. So anyway, so now we've got this all set up and we're ready to go. And now I can hit analyze, and let's see how my trackers go. Looking pretty good. Occasionally it picks up the bear and it goes with the bear, but it's not doing that right now. That's fantastic. They are jumping around a little bit, but not horribly so. And we're just going to let it finish the track. It's really nice to have a computer with a pretty heavy-duty processor for stuff like this, and a good graphics card. When you're doing Adobe After Effects, it's just a program that really loves processor and loves GPU. And it uses each one for different things, so it's actually really important. So now you can see this tracker actually went way off the reservation here. And the reason why I did that is because it kind of sort of went off the page. So I'm going to stop it, and I'm going to undo, and I'm going to zoom in, and we're going to move that tracker a little bit here so that it doesn't do that again. So I'm going to move this one here. I'm going to bring this one in a little bit, and just hope that it doesn't go off the page again. So you kind of have to watch it while it's doing its job, and while it's tracking. You do kind of want to watch what the trackers are doing and kind of see if they start sliding a little bit too much. So we're back to 0, and also when you do the tracker, be mindful of where your time is. A couple times I've been forward in time, and all of a sudden things don't work very well, and I'm like, why? Well, because I was just forward a couple frames or something, and I kind of missed something. So it's always important to make sure that your time is set to where you want it to start from when you're doing your tracker. So there we go. Let's see. Oh boy, see, that died really quickly. All right, stop. So when you're doing tracker, it is a little bit of a trial and error, And I haven't actually, usually I have problems with this corner, and so of course for my demo, once I've practiced this a couple times and done some experiments, of course I'm having trouble with this corner now. Whoops, that was stupid. Let's try that again. So what I just did is I was trying to move over so I could see what it was doing, because it was going to go off out of my window here, and in doing so I stopped the tracker. So this is working all right. Let's see now. Hey, this is where he's going to start moving the chair a little closer to the edge of the frame. Let's see if the tracker freaks out again. Hopefully it won't. And we'll get a good stable track. Yeah, there we go, because that's where it lost its place last time. So just moving the tracker up a little bit and making it a touch smaller really helped. Now, of course, when the bear stands up and kind of walks towards the cameraman here, then the tracker freaks out. But that's okay, because I planned on that. I knew that was going to happen because I knew we were going to lose everything. So we've got some good tracking data. Okay, so now here's our next step, and this is the interesting part. So when you go to a tracker, by the way, and you start analyzing, one of the things that After Effects does, it took me a little while to get used to, is it actually opens up another tab in the viewer here, and you're actually working only on that layer, which makes sense. You don't want to have the other layer turned on anyway, because that would interfere with the tracker and so on and so forth. So here I've got the green screen layer. Let's turn that on. Why can't I? I guess it's probably waiting for me to take care of my target and stuff. So anyway, the next step then, I was going to show you something, but the next step is to then take my motion data and I'm going to apply it to a target. In this case, I'm going to apply it to the layer, the green screen layer. Now, if you've done this before and you're watching this, the first thing you might be thinking is, no, wait, that's wrong. That's not going to work quite well. And this is true. I'm going to be making a mistake on purpose just so that you can see what's happening, because I've fallen into this problem many times, and I just want to make sure that we go there so you can see what happens. So I'm going to click OK, and I've given it my target, and I'm going to hit Apply. And I want to apply in the X and the Y dimensions, and the reason why is because the camera does rotate a little bit, so I do want the rotation to be applied as well as the position. So I'm going to click OK. Now it's going to come back and I can turn on the video of the green screen, and now you can see, whoa, what just happened? I'm totally in the wrong position. All of a sudden the video is rotated. Please ignore how bad the green screen key light is here. But you can just see this is not going to work. And one of the things that you also will notice here is if you open up the layer, I just closed it, but you can see right here, position and rotation, it is now keyframed an animation basically for every single frame in the video. So every frame in the video has a separate keyframe for position and rotation. This causes a major problem, and that major problem is, right now, I cannot go back and rotate. What I always wanted to do with this is set an initial rotation with the layer, okay, like this, and then have the rotation of the tracker be added on top of that. That doesn't work. So what I did is I just changed my rotation, and I can change my position, okay, but in the next frame, it just jumps right back to normal, because each frame has its own individual keyframe. So I'm going to undo those things, and then I'm actually going to undo the application of the motion tracker. What I need to do in order to get this to work the correct way is I actually have to work with something called a null object. So I'm going to right click and go New Null Object. A null object is basically exactly what it sounds like. It's nothing. It's an empty object. We use empties all the time in 3D animation, especially if you're familiar with Blender. Empties are really, really, really handy things to use. Well, guess what? You can use them in Adobe After Effects as well, and they are so helpful. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to take the motion tracking data from the background layer, and I'm going to apply it to the null. Now, some of you might be going, why would you be doing that? Well, you'll see, because this is actually really, really cool. So the first thing I'm going to do is up here in my tabs, I'm going to go click back into my layer. I've got the motion tracking data here. Now it's obviously not selected here, so I'm going to click under here and I'm going to select the tracker underneath the layer in the timeline here. And now my target is still set to be the video, the green screen video, but it just hasn't been applied yet. Well, we're going to hit edit target. And instead of the green screen video, I'm going to change it to the null object and click OK. Now, I can't do anything until I hit apply. So I'm going to hit apply, X and Y dimensions, and we'll go back. Now you can see the null object, this is actually really interesting, is exactly where I want it to be, but it's a little twisted. But we can go ahead and play, and you can see that it really does stay in exactly the right position. It does rotate a little bit. The tracking data probably could be a little bit better, but I'm just going to live with it for now for the course of this demo. It does rotate and slide a little bit. It's another nice thing about using a null is you can always kind of play with your tracking data and really see if it's going to work well before you end up putting the green screen video in. So you can have your background video, you can import it. You don't even have to have your green screen video shot. You can still take your motion tracking data, apply it to a null, and just by watching the null you can really get a good sense of how good your tracking data is. And you can see here it could be better. It does rotate a little bit and maybe not in the best manner, but that's okay. Now we'll just show you the magic of what we can do here. So here I can turn on the green screen video, and what I can do, and this is just so simple, it's almost frustrating because it's so easy. Right over here in the layers list, oh, before I do this, I just wanted to show you. So if I open up the null, you can see the position and the rotation data has now been keyframed, just like it had done to the green screen video before when I applied the motion tracking data to the green screen layer. So now I'm going to close that. I've got the motion data applied to the null. All I have to do is select my green screen layer, and under this column here where it says parent, I can click the drop down and I can choose the null out of the drop down, or I can take this little selector thing and I can drag it to the null, and that sets the parent of the green screen layer. It makes the null its parent. Now, if you're not familiar with parent and child relationships in computer graphics or anything like that, it's basically exactly what it sounds like. It's just like, you know, it reminds me of those poor children, and I know some of them need this, but those poor children that you see in the mall who are on a leash, you know, and the mom's walking down the mall and the kid's on a leash, you know. It kind of reminds me of that, because if the mom decides that she's going to go to the next store, she drags the kid with her, and the kid doesn't really have much of a choice. It has to go where the parent goes. However, the child can move around within its own limitations, of course, to the ends of whatever the leash allows them to do. So here we have a very similar system. The green screen video is now basically on a leash that's being held by the null layer. So as the null layer rotates and moves, so does the green screen video. However, what's really cool is now the positioning and the rotation of the green screen video layer is relative and has a little bit of freedom to move around within the confines of that leash. So what I can do is I can take this video now with the move tool, and I can move it over and put my, you know, the green screen shot right there inside in the chair, and kind of position the body so that it's in the right place. I can also take the rotation and maybe rotate a little bit more or less. And then what's cool is that rotation is saved to this layer, but then that layer is essentially, you know, leashed, if you will, to the null layer, and then the null layer twists and moves it a little bit better. So I can actually move ahead in time here, and because the green screen layer isn't animated at all, so you see I've got no keyframes, I can kind of slide it around and move it into places here, and it won't affect what the null layer is doing. It just allows me to kind of put it in a good position. And now I have it looking a little bit like I am in the chair. Now there's some obvious problems. One of the biggest being if I set the rotation the way that I like, you can see that I'm chopping off the bottom, where the bottom of my legs got chopped off, and I didn't shoot the film wide enough. I didn't film this wide enough with enough of my legs in the frame. So I would need to go back, and I actually did reshoot that, and can show you that. And that's actually one of the cool things again about using a null. So I can right click and I can import my other green screen video, turn this one off, okay, and I can just take this new green screen video and I can just bring that right down here, or just bring it right into here like this. Let's set another key light on here. My horrible green screen. Okay, now the timing of this one's completely different, of course, because I was filming this by myself. So I'm just gonna, there I stand up right about the same time. Let's see there, boom. Slide this back. There we go. So I stand up. Now I can actually take this and make it a child of the null layer as well. And so that's another reason. I mean, you could think about it too this way. You could have multiple layers, all with different compositional elements that are all following the same motion tracker, just as long as they're all children of the null layer. So there's just a ton of different applications for taking the motion tracking and applying it to a null layer, and then setting the green screen layers as children of the null layer. So I can now do this. I can scale it up a little bit because I think that's a little too small. I know scaling up video is always a little sketchy, right? Because it always ends up being not the best quality in the world. But I can kind of play with this a little bit and kind of get it set up here like so. And then I can just watch it move with the null layer and kind of have everything set up pretty good. So that's actually a pretty good motion track. I mean, it's not perfect, but it works pretty well, and you can just really kind of see that that the motion tracking data worked out pretty well. Of course, I still need to work a lot on my green screen and other masking techniques here because it's pretty bad, but the basics of what's happening is still pretty good. Now see, there's another problem. When I step up and out of the video, look what happens to my head. I get chopped off. So it's just one of those things where you just really need to be very careful with your composition and stuff. And I may just have to kind of rotate this back like this. Now I'm getting parts of the floor that weren't green screened in here, and probably needs to be a little bigger. And I can just keep tweaking it until it looks about right. Yeah, it probably does need to be a little bit bigger. Oops, see, I double clicked and I went into the layer. There we go. So there, that's that. Just kind of put that there. I can kind of look at where the edge of the chair is, and that's probably about the right size. Yeah, that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. So as I'm kind of going through this, I can even just play it in real time and just kind of see how it looks. See all this noise that's here? That's from the really bad green screening. And the green screen video is looking kind of blurry right now, and some of that is because I've enlarged it so much. I was just shooting with a 720p camera, so it's not exactly the highest resolution, so it definitely doesn't allow me to do that. But you can see the motion tracking looks really good. It messes up a little bit in places like that, but not bad. So anyway, all that to say, in review really quickly, to start a good composition in After Effects, you import your video. Easier to create your comp just by dragging your background video down into the timeline. Then the comp immediately has the same amount of pixels. It also is the same amount of frames as your source video, so everything's just going to match. It's lazy, but it works. Then you drag your green screen in on top. You use your key light to get rid of the green. And then when you need to do motion tracking, find good places for your trackers, and then you apply the motion to a null layer or a null object, and then you can parent or actually make your green screen layers children of that null object, and then they have a little bit of freedom so you can rotate them and move them around and so on and so forth. So hopefully this gives you a good starter into how to do a good composition. There's a lot of things. Adobe After Effects is huge. This is barely scratching the surface, but hopefully it's just a good starter demo into kind of how to play with After Effects and just kind of how to start doing some special effects. I hope you enjoyed.